Hi. I got a little mixed up there on what I was supposed to do first. So I am live. Thank y'all for being here. I was ahead enough this time to actually schedule it to give people a little tiny bit of warning. I try to do these on Tuesdays at noon, but I can't always be here. Last week I had kids home on spring break, and so wasn't here last week, but thanks for joining me. I'm Dana K. White. If you're new here, I am the author of Decluttering at the Speed of Life. Also, my newest book about the spiritual side of things, Jesus Doesn't Care About Your Messy House, He Cares About Your Heart, is available wherever books are sold. So thank you. Yay, you can hear me. Thank you, Jen, for letting me know that. And Kathy, thank you. Y'all are the best. Okay, so I am going to take questions from those of you who are watching live. I actually lately have been kind of getting here in a hurry because I'm working on a big project in the mornings, and then I kind of run in and do these lives. And so I haven't been doing the questions from askdanakWhite.com. That's where you can ask questions for future lives if you're not able to actually watch live. But this week I was like, okay, I can actually go into my spreadsheet and take questions that were asked ahead of time, because I haven't been doing that for the last several weeks. And it is a mess. That spreadsheet, it's been long enough since I've been in there that I can't remember what the color coding means. Does that mean I've already done that one, or does that mean I haven't? So anyway, I just sent an email to my assistant saying, I'm going to let you make up the color coding, and here's where you're going to put the key, and then I will have that, and then hopefully we'll get that under control. But anyway, just in case you ever were under the very incorrect impression that I have it all together, now you know the truth. So, but yeah, you can ask questions for future ones, which, as I said, obviously I have not been using those questions lately. I've just been taking them from you live. If you would like to ask a question during this live, just go ahead and do that in the comments and put 3 question marks or a couple question marks at the beginning of your question, because that helps me see as things go by that you have a question, because I obviously can't read everything that's coming quickly and coming by. But yeah, you can go to askdanakWhite.com. I do answer questions once a month on my podcast. Those podcasts come out on Thursdays, wherever you like to listen to podcasts, all the normal, typical places, everywhere you would listen to a podcast, that's where it is. And then we also put them out here on YouTube on Saturday morning. So it's a couple days later, but those questions do get answered on those as well. Okay. Thank you. I hear this from people all the time. Donna says, I think you are my twin. I have so many long lost twins, and so many people, like, I think that we, maybe we were switched at birth, or I don't know, something like, there's just so many of us out there who struggle. So let's see. It is very, very windy here, like bananas windy. We've been having a lot of these days lately. It's been kind of crazy. But the wind is so intense. I don't know if y'all can hear it or not, but if my internet goes out, sorry. I mean, I don't understand why wind would make internet go out when it's actually under the ground, but whatever. Somehow it seems to affect it sometimes. So, all right. A lot of y'all are here. Go ahead and ask your questions, because I need questions to answer, because I was so confused with my spreadsheet because it had been a while since I've been in there. Yeah, let's talk about my newest book, Jesus Doesn't Care About Your Messy House. So I dive into the shame aspect around this issue. I think that one of the reasons, Donna had said, we're twins. I think that I will say that the vast majority of emails that I get from people who tell me, I am finally able to make progress using your methods. Like, I've never made progress before. I get these emails a lot. Almost every single one includes some version of this phrase: it was a turning point for me to realize I was not the only one who struggled, right? Like some version of that, like knowing I wasn't alone, knowing there wasn't something wrong with me, knowing that other people's brains work the way that my brain works, was the freeing moment that allowed people to finally turn that corner. And there's a quote, and I just, y'all are great at finding things for me, because I think last week I had a quote and y'all found who it was. But I've actually tried to look this up, and but somebody left a comment on my blog years ago, and it stuck with me, and they said that it was a quote. So I've tried to look it up. I couldn't find who said it, but basically it was, what I remember is, in order for someone to change, they have to feel accepted as they already are. And that's profound. And I think that a lot of us in this struggle, meaning this struggle being like, why is this so hard? What is wrong with me? This is not like running a marathon where like a teeny tiny percentage of the world ever does that. And everybody who looks at it goes, wow, run a marathon. I think a lot of the struggle for us who struggle in our homes with clutter, with daily stuff, with the maintenance of things, we're like, okay, this is a thing that's not supposed to be that hard, according to what it seems like the rest of the world says. And for some reason, it's really, really hard for me. Why is this so hard for me? And that produces a lot of this identity issues and the shame. And so that's why I wanted to address that head on. I am a Christian, so I can't talk about the shame issue without bringing my faith into that. And so, that's why my newest book, Jesus Doesn't Care About Your Messy House, really goes into like, what does the Bible say about all this, and looking at it from that perspective. So yeah, right, exactly. I feel normal after reading your book. Okay. Okay, we have a question. Okay, my computer's acting funny. So somebody's saying it's buffering. So like I said, we've got tons of wind here, so my internet's not fantastic right now. My craft room is at a place where I just don't know how to go forward. What do you suggest to tackle odds and ends stuff so I can get to enjoying the space? So the 2 decluttering questions, which is step 4 of my 5-step no mess decluttering process. Those 2 decluttering questions are created in a situation exactly like this and designed for a situation exactly like this. Odds and ends. I used to say, before I even had a process, when I was just completely overwhelmed, I was like, I can make progress to a certain point, and then I just end up with all these little things that I don't know what to do with them. They don't have a place to go. I don't know, blah, 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 and that was my sticking point. So that's where the 2 decluttering questions, they solve this problem. Okay, so let's dive into what they mean. Let's say that an odd and end, and you're specifically saying a craft room. So let's say that the odds and end thing that you're talking about is a leather puncher. Okay, like to punch a hole in a piece of leather or whatever. And it's something small, and it's something, and you're just like, oh, I don't know, I don't do a lot of leather stuff, but this is my craft room. And so it is a crafty thing and blah, blah, blah. Okay. We don't have to ask any of those questions, because the reality is when you're looking at a bunch of stuff or even one thing and you're like, no, technically I don't use it. I haven't used it in a while, but there is the kind of craft that I find it, and that it is actually hard to find, and blah, 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 or what, all these questions can go. I don't use any of those questions in my decluttering process. Instead, I ask the question, if I needed this leather puncher, hole puncher, I don't even know if that's a thing. I think it is. Where, I know it is actually, because I did leather work when I was little. It was one of my favorite things. My mom bought a kit. If I needed to punch a hole in a piece of leather, where would I look first for a leather puncher? Okay. And remember that when we are asking the decluttering questions, when I'm asking where would I look for it first, I am only asking that question because I don't know. Okay. A lot of people just hear that question and they assume that what they're asking is, where would it be? Or where would I find it? I'm not asking that question. Because if I know where it would be, then it left in step 2, the easy stuff where I already know where it goes. It already has an established step. This is specifically a question, where would I look for it first, is a question for the stuff that I don't know where it goes. It doesn't have a home. I don't know where to put it. It is not easy. It is difficult. Okay. So, and then you go, well, I don't know, because when do I look for this? But we're not asking that. The question is, if I needed a leather hole puncher, where would I look first for a leather hole puncher? And what you're picturing is you in a situation standing in your craft room where you need a leather hole puncher. And you have a vague feeling that you've got one, but you have no idea where it is. In that moment where you're like, I know I have one of these. I don't know where it is, but I know I have one. What's the first drawer that you would open? What's the first shelf where you would look? What's the first closet you would open? Like, where would you look first at the beginning of what you thought was going to be a 3-hour search, tearing your craft room apart? Okay. That is what needs to be its home. That's how we identify the home. We don't make up a home, because making up a home, like, oh, this is a good place to put this, or okay, here's all the logical reasons why I'm going to put this here. And that's how you get into situations where you're like, well, I got organized and now I can't find anything. That's not being organized, right? Like, that's the opposite of being organized. So we are envisioning that and saying, where's the first place? You may not feel confident about that place. That's fine. It is literally, where's the first place where I would look for it? And then when you do look for it, you go, okay, where's the first place where I would look for it? And you will learn that most of the time it's going to be in that place, because you asked yourself the question, where would I look for it first? It's going to be in the place where you end up looking for it first, even if it's not, because like, I'm not that predictable, right? Like, it may be today, it might be here, but I'm still going to find it in the first 1 or 2 places that I look. And then I'm going to put it into the place where I looked first when I put it back. And so that is how you build it. That's how you deal with odds and ends. Now, you may have a leather hole puncher and you just go, where would I look for it first? And you realize, I don't have an answer. I need to ask the second question. If I needed a leather hole puncher, would it ever occur to me that I already had one? Because the reality is, especially with crafty things, and those of us who struggle with clutter, we tend to be very crafty, right? So we tend to be very creative and resourceful and all that. We've been collecting all these things. Oh, that could be, but if I don't have an awareness that I have this thing, if the reality is that if I did need it, I would not go looking for it. I need to get rid of it. And that is hard. That is so hard, because you're like, oh, but what if I needed it? But here's the truth. This is how I ended up with so much clutter, right? Yes, I brought things in for all the great ideas, but I also rebought things I already had, because I had so much stuff that I didn't have an awareness of what I had. And therefore, if I needed a leather hole puncher, where would I look for it first? I mean, would it ever occur to me I already had one? The truth was that I, wouldn't even go looking for it, because it would never cross my mind that I had it. And a lot of times that's because I have so much stuff that I have no awareness of what all I have, right? And so then I let it go. And I go, the truth is that if I need this space to be decluttered, everything has to have an actual home. And I identify that home according to where I would look for it first. Everything has to have a home. And if I don't have a home for things, then if I don't have a place where I would look for it first, then I would just go out and buy another one, or I would borrow one from a friend, or I whatever. But the reality is that if I keep it, and I would still go out and buy another one, then I'm doubling up. Like that's how I end up with all this excess stuff, is I've rebought things because I didn't have that. Now, if I start to do this on a regular basis, I put the thing in the place where I would look for it first, then I start to gain confidence that I actually know what I have and can find it. And then I'm like, okay, leather hole puncher. It's not there. Okay, well, I got to go rebuy it. But that happens so incredibly rarely. I mean, like so rarely do I actually end up needing to rebuy something. But even if I do, I consider the cost of the item that I'm going to rebuy to be the payment that I'm paying on this space being functional. So, okay, let's see. My garage and home feel like a museum. I'm in the house I grew up in. I have items from kids, parents, grandparents, how to declutter memories and or interesting items. This is hard because I love interesting items, right? And lots of memories and things. And this is where the container concept is everything, right? It becomes, because like you said, a museum, there is a difference between a museum and a storage unit, right? Like a museum curates the exhibit so that you can actually see and experience and learn from these things. Now, I know you're not necessarily saying you want to live in a museum. I know you're just using that, but I'm just saying, like, thinking of those two things differently is really important. But the container concept is space is finite, which means something can be a memory, interesting, important, valuable, all these things, and yet still not deserve space in my home because the space is limited. I can only have what will fit in this space, usably, get toably, functionally, right? And because you're specifically talking about memories or interesting items, carrying out the container concept all the way to the house is a container, and the thing that deserves space in the container first is the people who live in it right now, and the priority is our right now lives. Like you and your right now life gets priority in this space, which means that something may be cool and a great memory, but if it makes it harder for you to live your right now life, to cook the meals that you need to have, to sit down and relax, to be able to do the things that you want to do, the hobbies that you want to do, to be able to have people over for a meal, whatever. If it makes those things harder, then it doesn't deserve space in the home. Okay. It's a great thing, but you put the priority on the people who are living in this house right now and the function that they need to be able to perform there. Let's see. I'm homebound and non-weight bearing from surgery. I want to sit and declutter, but I can't take it there now. Should I get a box for my spouse to do when he gets home, or what do you think? I avoid to do later at all costs. Okay. So, and I don't know the situation that you're in. I don't know how temporary it is. I don't know, whatever. But because of my brain, because every time I think, you know what, this is the time when I should get to do this way and not have to take it there now, I always end up regretting it. Right. And so I'm not, and I get it. I don't know exactly like how long this is going on, if this is an ongoing thing, So if you were going to do that, I would keep it to a very, very small, thing. But what I would actually recommend is that if you're going to do seated decluttering, it is better to, while you're in this situation, focus on, and if it's an ongoing situation, while you don't have help there right then, I would sit in the space and only do what you can do while seated. Okay. So it is possible to make a lot of progress just doing trash or recycling if you have it, and or recycling. And obvious donations. It is possible, because remember, when we're using the no mess process, we're going one item at a time, final decision on that item, with each thing. So every single thing that leaves is making this space better. And that is our goal, is for this space to be better. Our goal is not do this huge decluttering project that ends up backfiring and all that, right? Because you're in this situation where you have, non-weight bearing and all that. Anything that you can do sitting there all the way. So one of the things that happens so often is that the easy spot, or even the where would I look for it first, is someplace that's like not this cabinet, but this cabinet, right? That's next door. And I don't have to actually get up and take it there now. So what I would do is really say, if this is not going to be perfect, right? However, I'm going to get all the trash out that I can while seated, because the trash is right here and I don't even have to get up and move. I'm going to go hard on the donations. And the more that you do that, the more you might be like, okay, at first I thought there wasn't that much trash. And now I'm like, you know what? This is just really easy to throw it in the trash, which is great, right? Or throw it in the donate box or the recycling bin or whatever. Like, the more I can do that, the better off you're going to be all overall decluttering. Let's see. I am not the best housekeeper. Welcome, because you're in the right place, because we all relate. I work full time and only have a couple hours after for dinner, homework, etc. I try to follow first things people see and can keep that up daily. But how do I move on? Yeah, it's remembering that the no mess decluttering process does not require you to set aside specific amounts of time, right? Like, it does not require you to predict how long it's going to take to work on a space. Like, let's say it's a closet, or it's a, the kids' room, or you're, going to declutter the dresser, whatever, because we are going to make progress, and only progress, with my 5-step no mess decluttering process, which you can get a printable of that when you go to aslobcomesclean.com/5. Okay. But because of that, did I miss it? Sorry. Oh, here we go. You can't, when you do have time, energy, focus, ability, to work on this for a little bit, go to the next most visible space. You say you've got your visible stuff under control. Go to the next most visible space. Go to whatever space you want to work on to declutter. Take your trash bag and a donate box and go item by item, one at a time, making a final decision on that item, so that when life happens, or you're exhausted, or you just want to quit, you can, and you've only made that space better. It is such a mindset shift that ultimately is the thing that will change your home, no matter how much time and energy you have. Let's see. Let's see. I have a bookshelf room filled with books and more books piled on the floor. Most of the ones I'm ready to get rid of are on the shelves. Best way to declutter in stages without piles all over the house. Yeah. Yeah, this is great. Like, you have a bookshelf room filled with books, piles on the floor. So what I would do is pick your favorite. Because you have to pick them up and do something with them anyway, right? So pick up your favorite books off the floor that you can see without making piles and moving and all that kind of stuff. But it's like they're already piled on the floor. Oh, that's the book that I really, okay. And then what's my least favorite book? I'm going to take that off and replace it. And then, okay. And that goes straight into a donate box or sell box or whatever you're doing. Okay. All right. What's my next favorite that I can get to easily? If there's a stack of 5 that I love, okay, I'm going to go one at a time, and I'm just going to do that and do the one in, one outing on the bookshelves, because it's going to be easy, because you said most of the ones I'm ready to get rid of are on the shelves. This is a way to take the ones that you do want and just put them in, and that just, it's somehow incredibly freeing in your brain to not say, oh, which ones do I hate? If you love books, you love books, right? And so even just the idea that you're going to reject one can feel really bad, but instead to go, oh, I'm excited about this one. Which one can I get rid of to give space for it? There's just a mindset shift there that happens. I didn't skip you. I promise. I promise. Because there's no guarantee I'll get to everybody anyway, but also I don't see things. So there's never any purpose in that. Okay, I have a room with 4 purposes. I need to remove a 5 shelf from it. Most of the items belong in that room. How do I declare that shelf? When the items don't have a place. So first thing is, you said you have a room with 4 purposes. It can serve all those purposes, but name it the one thing. And I don't have time to go into all that, but I have a video on like defining the room and how powerful that is. Go watch that video, okay? Most of the items belong in that room. So what that means is, if you need to remove a shelf from the room, then that means you're gonna, take the thing off the shelf, and you've got to clear it. So you take the thing off the shelf and you go, okay, where would I look first for this? If this shelf doesn't exist in here, I would look for it on this shelf. Okay, well, then something else has to leave, or I would look for it in this drawer, or I would look for it in, the closet or whatever. Okay, well, I take it there now and I go, is there room for it? Because if there's not a room, I'm guessing there's not a lot of room because the room has 4 different purposes, but I take it to this drawer and I say, all right, I would look for this first here. So what am I willing to get rid of in order to create the space for this item? Because decluttering is the only answer. And it's great that you're getting rid of a shelf, because that's really going to free up a lot of space in here, but that's how you do it, item by item. But before you even do that, I would just at least, because it says most of the items belong in that room, I would at least look through that shelf and make sure you look for the trash. Make sure you look for the easy stuff that belongs somewhere that you already know where it goes. You may have to remove something to make space for it even with that. Get rid of the obvious donations, because it's going to clarify. When you have everything on there and you haven't done the trash, easy stuff, and donations step yet, it's possible to like envision this big, thing. Okay, envision that it's the vision that you have is more overwhelming than what it's going to be when you get rid of those things. Then it just clarifies, oh, okay, now I know what I'm dealing with. Let's see. How do I determine the container concept when my goal is to use half of my basement as storage and half will make into a living space? We had a fast move to a house half the size, basement is full. I would really zero in on that living space first, meaning clearing it out. And living space means not storage, and so that means you're going, you said it's full. That means at the very least half of the stuff in that entire basement needs to leave, like leave, be donated, be trashed, whatever. So I would go in really hard on those first 3 steps, like just hard on those first 3 steps, and then set up the living area to like use that container space well of, this is not a space for storage. And so then I'm going to keep on going through, but I would go through the whole thing and just go hard on the trash and obvious donations. Okay. What do you suggest when there's so much clutter? It's difficult and overwhelming to find or make a place for it. Don't find or make a place. Identify the place according to where you would look for it first. When you get to that space, if you can't even get to it, okay, which is something that happens for a lot of people who are in the situation where everything is cluttered. When I get to that space, I'm going to get as close as I can to the place where I would look for it first. Okay. And go back. If you just got here late at the beginning, I really dove into the whole where would I look for it first and how that works. But when I get to that spot, then I'm going to remove something, because if let's say that, okay, I would look for it first in that cabinet, but that cabinet has a big old pile of stuff in front of it. I can't even get to the cabinet. Okay. Obviously, that's going to need to be decluttered. Decluttered, not organized. Okay. I don't talk organizing here. I talk decluttering because decluttering actually achieves what I thought I needed to organize in order to get. Like I always thought I got to get organized. No, I just need to get stuff out of my house. So if there's a pile in front of the cabinet, lots and lots of stuff is going to have to leave your house, right? But because we're working on this space, this thing that I would look for first in that cabinet, and I go to that cabinet, I can't even get to it. I'm going to put it as close to the cabinet as I can. I'm going to get rid of something from the pile that is at least the size of the item. And that is going to be either trash. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. I'm about to sneeze. I thought I was. Okay, it's going to happen. Okay. But at some point, yeah, ideally, I'm going to get rid of trash, which there's going to be trash. If there are piles in front of a cabinet, there's definitely trash, right? So trash that's the size of this item, and then that trash is going to go in my trash bag. That moves my whole house forward. That's how you go from there's clutter everywhere to how do I really make a difference in the whole house? It's that net gains decluttering. Okay. So I am taking this thing to the place where I would look for it first, and I'm removing something that is going to leave my house, trash or obvious donation. But again, I do have to say, when you ask a question like that, I feel your pain, right? And so I really want to encourage you. And I think that other people in the comments will encourage you too, because I hear it from people all the time. They're like, you need to just tell everybody this all the time. And that is, you need to read Decluttering at the Speed of Life. Like if you haven't read it, you need to read it. Most libraries carry it. If yours doesn't, ask them to get a copy of it. And you might be the first person on the list to get it if you're the one who requested it. But like, it's available wherever books are sold, but also, again, most libraries have it. The audio version is perfect for while you're decluttering, because it will, if you feel like, but there's clutter everywhere, I just don't know what to do, I don't know what to start, that book talks you through all of it. Yes, I share that stuff here. Like I share these things with you, and yet you're getting snippets and an idea and a mindset shift and blah, blah. But the book takes you all the way through the mindset shifts, the process, applying the process to all the different rooms, and dealing with the process when you're helping all the different people in your life. Like it goes all of it packaged together. Let's see. Love this. Yep, it 100% works. I've been able to find everything since I met you. Thank you. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Let's see. Stranger coming soon. What thing do we often forget due to our clutter blindness, but will be seen by a stranger as soon as he walks around my house? What not to forget? Already did a lot. That's a great question. I don't know off the top of my head. I always say that if somebody's going to use your bathroom, if you're going to have guests in your bathroom, go sit on your toilet. I mean, you can have the lid down, right? But go sit on your toilet with the doors closed so that you see what they're going to see. Because I'm always like, somebody sitting on the toilet is like literally just looking around at everything. And sometimes that's the stuff that you go, oh my goodness, I did not know there was a splatter there or whatever. But yeah, don't forget, I've got a series here on YouTube, 14 Days to Opening Your Front Door to Guests, that talks you through that whole process of going from to what to do. Let's see. What do I do when I need to go put something where I would look for it, but the places I would look for it are so overwhelming, my brain freezes. I literally have no idea what to do. I just answered a question very similar to this, or I answered this in the midst of another question. So the short answer is, when you get to that space, you put it as close as you can to the space. You remove something, at least one thing that is the size of the item that you're putting there. Okay. So it doesn't have to be exact thing for exact thing. It's space for space, and if you're looking for trash and all you're doing is saying, okay, is there a piece of trash or an obvious donation that's the size of this item that I need to put there so that I'm not making it any worse. Okay. I'm not going to stop and start decluttering here. But when you do that, sometimes you're like, oh, actually, there's 4 pieces of trash I can gather and go put them back in the space where I was originally decluttering. If all we have are blue trash bags, is that okay? Absolutely. Use whatever you have, whatever you have, however you can get rid of things. Absolutely. The reason that I say black trash bags is, and I know that there are areas of the world that, you know, people tell me they don't even have black trash bags, but here in the US we do. So the reason I say black trash bags is simply that it keeps me from second guessing, and it keeps the people in my house, like a white trash bag or a clear trash bag, people can see what's in there and go, oh, wait, that, you know, doll that actually doesn't even, you know, the heads came off a long time ago and we lost it, you know, like, oh, okay. Black trash bag prevents that. But yeah, use absolutely whatever you have is great. 5-minute betters are magic, but how do you approach growing pile of unfinished crafts, repairs that to be done that take more than 5 minutes? They need to be done, and I just want to have, I just want to do it. I just have no time. Yeah, it's a container. So where would you look first for the item that the unfinished craft, and go take it there now and let that be the limit to how many of these things you can keep. Maybe it's a drawer, maybe it's a shelf in your closet, maybe it's a cabinet. Like, this is where I would look first for unfinished projects, that when I do happen to have the time. But then that is a finite space. And so what happens is you're like, oh, this unfinished project, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm absolutely going to finish this. I would look for it in that cabinet, and I go take it there, and I'm like, oh, I've got 4 others of the exact same project that somehow I had started those too. And then you go, you know what, that one right there, I don't even like those colors anymore. And that, okay. And then, it makes it easier when you're putting it in one space and you're letting that space be the limit. Okay. How do you declutter a favorite hobby? I love baking and want to make it a side hustle, but I have 2 small boys and the mess that takes over is overwhelming. Any tips, or should I let it go? I'll just say that those 2 small boys are not going to be 2 small boys forever. So you don't have to give it up forever. I would say, you know, like, fit it into the container that is your life. Like, what can you do? Maybe it can't. And you know, it often depends on, like, how necessary is it for you to have the side hustle or not. Maybe for now you're like, I am going to do this for my friends and for my kids' friends, and I'm just going to do it more rarely or whatever. But as far as, like, the stuff of it, the container, like, what, okay, so I can't bake as much as I want to bake right now. I can't have it be the same, you know, size side hustle that maybe I see other people do on Instagram and that I dream of doing. So what, for me, anytime where I have kind of had that kind of stuff going on in my brain, I was really good at collecting all the stuff for it. I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that. So I'm going to collect this. I'm going to collect this. I'm going to collect this. Then it also, the clutter added to the stress of it, of not being able to do it, and the guilt and all that frustration. So instead saying, okay, this is the space in my kitchen that I can devote to the stuff I would need for baking because I love it so much. Now, it can't be also, you know, I can't have so much baking stuff that it means I don't have any room for skillets or plates or cups or, you know, all those things that we do use on a regular basis. And so I'm choosing that container according to, this is the stuff we have to have for our family with 2 small boys. And then this is the space that I can devote to that. And then I put my favorite things in first, or the most unique things, or the most expensive things, or whatever. I'm going to limit it down to that. And so I'm going to get rid of these other things that don't fit in there. Let's see. help for Entryway. Always overrun by boots and shoes. We live in a northern climate, so at times we need to have snow boots, raincoats, and shoes available for 2 adults and 2 kids. Yeah, I mean, I think so okay, there's a couple things here. Accepting the reality of where you are, right? Like, because sometimes it's like, I don't want this here, but at the same time, this is how our family has to live, right? But as far as the being overrun, if you do have another place where things are stored, and then we have a pair of shoes or a pair of boots, or a pair of shoes and a pair of boots or whatever here, for this season, the 5-minute pickup is really powerful for that. Like, so solve this problem according to your unique situation and how you want it every day for 7 days. Which the first day you're like, okay, I'm solving the problem. It's a big dramatic thing. But the second day is the key. And the third day is really the key, because the second day, it's not quite a problem yet, or it's nowhere near what it was before. So it feels like you kind of can ignore it, but instead solve it again the next day, and then solve it again the next day. And then you'll figure out, okay, this is what actually works in this space. But you also, if you're embracing the reality, I know I got a tray, and it's for boots and things like that. I got a tray, and that can be your container. So it's like they have to fit here, which is a visual signal that, oh, actually this child has 4 pairs of boots here instead, because there's room enough just for, the ones that we have. But I also don't live in a boot snow climate. So, and then hooks for the raincoats, but it's like you have the certain number, and let that be the limit, the container. Let's see. Okay, looking for questions. If you have questions, I've got time for some more. Just a reminder that I do have decluttering coaches. Okay, so I think this week we have another 1 Hour Better coming out, and I know y'all love those. And my coaches do the coaching. They walk you through the 5-step process. There is a map at my website, declutteringcoaches.com. Those are all coaches that, trained and certified by me in my method, right? And there's a map there, so you can see if there's anyone in your area who can actually come to your home. But there's also most of them do virtual coaching as well, okay, to talk you through and help you stay on track with the process, because the process works. Like, it absolutely works. Yes. Let's see. We are in a temporary Airbnb while building our house. I packed away all but 2 plates, bowls, and cups. My son was upset and said I said I'm unable to manage more without help. I love it. I love it. I mean, like, I think that's a fantastic way to approach it. I'm a big fan of when people question, why can't you have more stuff, to say, I'm so sorry, I can't handle it. I mean, like, I use that all the time. Let's see. I tended to try to put likes together. Is that productive or not so much? Absolutely, it's productive as the 5th step of my decluttering process. So that is part of step 5. Step 5 is embrace the realities of the space. And the first part of that step is to put like items together, to consolidate. But you do that after you've removed the trash, after you've gotten the easy stuff out, meaning stuff that does not belong here, and then you already know where it goes, so that's what makes it easy. After you've gotten out the obvious donations, after you have done the gone through with all the stuff that you don't know where it goes, and you've asked yourself, where would I look for this first? And you've taken those things. So you putting likes together is after you have done those first 4 steps, because otherwise you like together and some of that stuff, you don't even want it. Some of that stuff might be trash when you actually look at it as looking for trash. I love the 1 hour betters. I refer to them as power hours because each friend I help gets so much. Yes, I love it. So another thing for you to remember is if you would like to be, if you want to see the whole 1 hour betters, there is one of my Patreon levels where now you get to do that. Okay. So there should be a link below, patreon.com/slob-comes-clean. There's a lot of great perks to being one of my Patreon members. And one of those is that the top level, they do get access to the full hour through Patreon of the 1 hour betters. Because some people are like, I want to declutter along with it. Let's see. Tips on decluttering after the loss of a pet. We're not there yet. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. But I don't know how much to keep after he's gone. It's been difficult imagining getting rid of his items. Yeah, it's very, very tough. What I would say, and what we have done, is to remember that the one item makes you feel all the good feelings. All the items together produce frustration and negative feelings over all this stuff. Like, I'm tripping over this thing. I don't know what to do with this. But we've kept our dogs' collars after they passed away. Like, that is because that is the reminder, right? Like, it's something that I can stick in a memory box, stick in, my drawer, whatever. Like, this type of thing produces all the good feelings. And yet, if I keep all of it, that's where the frustration comes in. So that's one of my biggest pieces of advice for anything, sentimental and difficult. How do I deal with boxes of letters and memories and cards from my teens and 20s? I'm now in my 40s. I know they only serve me and no one else is interested in them, but struggling to know the container concept. So, like, where would you look first for them? And I know I'm saying this like it's no big deal. I know it's hard, right? But the container concept. So, it doesn't have to be a container. It could be like, I would look for them in that drawer right there of this desk in the guest room, whatever. Although you don't necessarily want your guests to go through your journals from when you were 20, right? But whatever that place is, and then that space is the limit, which means I go through them and have trash over here or recycling and the container right here where I'm going to put it, the limited space, and I'm going to go through it going, that's the amount of space that I have. So it naturally helps sort out which things are more important. And it also is the way to get started, knowing that the answer is not that you have to just dump them all. It's not like this, should I get rid of them? Should I not? I'm like, no, if I have a place where I would look for it that isn't taking up space that I actually need for my right now life, then of course I can keep them. But that space is limited. I can't just keep everything. I'd keep anything, but not everything. Okay, y'all, I'm not going to put it up there, but there is no purposeful skipping questions. I promise. I promise. So y'all tell me how on your YouTube lives you are able to see everything that scrolls by really quickly. And give me your tips for how you do that. Okay. I'm just saying that because there's been multiple of those today. And I feel like you can tell how I feel about that. All right. Any tips for staying focused on decluttering and not cleaning? I move stuff during any of the 5 steps and find dirt and feel the need to drop everything and clean. Yeah, do the easiest version that lets you keep going. A Swiffer, a microfiber cloth, whatever. Just have that with you so that you can quickly and not deep clean it. Okay. Because that, as you're saying, that is keeping you from making the progress. So whatever it takes to be able to keep moving, that's what you need to do. All right. Let's see. I have 2 houses to declutter. I would like to move back down to where my family lives. Sounds like I need to do the trash and donate steps first. Yes, absolutely. You're right. Let's see. I am 59 and I got rid of all the old letters from childhood and early adulthood. I never looked at them and my kids would have no context for them. Yeah, it's tough. I literally just recently, like 2 days ago, I went through a bunch of stuff and I had my container where I was going to be, keeping the things. But as I went through, I gained so much momentum for like, I can go, that can go. And I mean, I was just pitching stuff like bananas, like crazy. Let's see. Okay. If you do have a question, make sure you have those questions at the question marks at the beginning, so I'll be able to see it. Because I think that I have answered all the questions. Let's see. Here's one. I have a large container house and it's getting larger as my boys move out. I understand. I've decluttered a lot, but I feel like I should go further. How to know, should I declutter more or am I addicted to decluttering? As you're decluttering, if you get to this point where you're asking yourself this question, what I would do is really zero in on what was the reason I wanted to declutter. Like, what was my clutter keeping me from doing? Was it keeping me from being spontaneous? Was it keeping me from feeling like I could have people over? So have people over. Was it keeping me from feeling like I could go participate in running marathons? I don't know. Like was it keeping me from feeling like I could spend my time doing this because I always felt guilty about my house, right? Like, think of what it was that the clutter was keeping you from doing it, and then do that thing. Try that thing and see, are you able to do that thing now? So yeah. Let's see. I love this. I'm going to listen to your audiobook, Decluttering at the Speed of Life again. It's been a minute since I have. Yes, you can absolutely make progress. Okay. Again, if you've asked a question, I've got another 8 minutes. So if I have not answered your question, re-ask it with question marks at the beginning, and I'll see if I can get to it. I have things in containers, but don't use some things. What is the next question to ask when deciding if I should get rid of? Yeah, I think it's always a good idea to, if you know that you have containers with things that you don't use, go through that container, go through the decluttering process in that one specific container. So I know that's a container that I don't know what's in there and I don't ever use it. So I'm going to get it. I'm going to say, okay, is there any trash? Is there anything that's easy that actually I already know where it goes? I don't know how it ended up in this container. Get that out of there. Okay. Is there anything in this space that is actually an obvious donation to me? Great. And knowing that, like, go through the process in that container and know that your clutter threshold, like if you're like, okay, it's still driving me bananas, or it's still making life difficult because I've got more stuff that I should handle. Great. Go through those spaces with the idea that having less, period, makes life easier. So getting rid of the entire container, like if you do that in 3 containers, there is a really good chance that you would get those 3 down to 1. Let's see. Okay. Was there a beginning of this question that I did not see? I also have decluttering at the speed of life and organizing for the rest of us. Anyway, I'm sorry I didn't see the beginning of that question. If you want to ask it again really quickly. Where do you recommend starting decluttering in a garage? Start in any space, but in like if the goal is to park in the garage and you can't park in the garage now, start in the area where you would park the car and go hard on trash, easy stuff, and obvious donations. Okay. Let's see. I am slowly decluttering, but by the time I get partway through the areas I started with, they're starting to get cluttered again. I've gotten rid of tons, but it's never enough. So when I talk about the visibility rule, what I say is start in the most visible space, declutter hard there. And then the next time you declutter, go back to that visible space and declutter it again, and then move on to the next one. Because what happens is when I go to that space the second time, I can feel like, oh no, it's cluttered again. It's not. It's not what it was before. What it was before is like months or years worth of collection. Now it's only like a week or two. And I find that it's basically trash and easy stuff that I can do with there. And then I move to the next one. That's how I keep it from being this cycle of, oh no, it's just one thing after another. That's how I make real momentum. The other thing is the 5-minute pickup. Really zero in on doing a 5-minute pickup every day, especially in those areas that you have already decluttered, to keep them decluttered. Let's see. I have read, okay, I think this is the one. I've read Jesus Doesn't Care About Your Messy House. So helpful. Yeah, I'm so glad. And How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind. What should I read next if you have both of their books? Because you have read the lots of words ones, you're a lots of words person, clearly. What I would do is, I mean that because you read the books, not because of your words, my words. I would read Decluttering at the Speed of Life. That is the deep dive into decluttering. Organizing for the Rest of Us is the flip throughable tip version, which is helpful for a lot of people and is very helpful. But really diving deep into the concepts, yes, Decluttering at the Speed of Life for sure. Okay, I can answer, let's see, I've got one more that I see, probably have missed some, that has question marks at the beginning. This is going to be our last one because I do have a meeting here in a couple minutes. Keeping myself on track. I often fall into the same old habits, but I'm glad when you're in my head, put it there now. Like, did you have notes until it was a new habit? Keeping myself on track. I often fall into the same old habits, but glad when I put it there now, like, did you have notes until this new habit? I mean, I think it's more just, I try to boil things down as basic as they can be. So like, for example, I don't do a long to-do list. I'm like, do the dishes. I'm just going to do the dishes so that it's so boiled down that I don't have to have the notes. If the notes are helpful for you, awesome, great, do that if you need to. That's why I have a printable of the 5-step decluttering process so that you have that to refer back to until it becomes necessary. But as far as like, I would zero in on a new habit until that habit, I didn't need reminders. Okay. I'm so sorry, I can't answer anymore, but I do have to go. So I have enjoyed our time, and don't forget that my new book is out, The Spiritual Side of Things. So I would love, if you've read it and you loved it, I would love it if you left a review wherever you bought it, because that's incredibly helpful for authors. So I will talk to y'all. I think I should be here next week, hopefully. All right. Bye, y'all.